Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Donna Chow, and I'm your host and your moderator for today's eLotus webinar. eLotus is the leading provider of continuing education for acupuncturists. Today's webinar is Palmistry Case Analysis presented by Rick Bernard. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few items to familiarize you with our webinars and how they work. Today's webinar will be from 11 to 12 p.m. Pacific time. And in this webinar, Rick will examine a variety of hands in depth in this webinar, expanding our understanding of palmistry. This class will wrap up everything we learned in Rick's previous palmistry courses. So if you haven't already, you can watch all of them at elotus.org, which are all CEU approved. And even better, I recommend the Gold Pass membership, which gives you free access to all of his past and future webinars, as well as unlimited CEUs and free herbs. For lecture notes, download them directly from the Blue Course Access page in your eLotus account. To use the webinar chat room, set your chat preference to everyone so that everyone can see what you're typing and be part of the conversation. To ask a speaker a question, enter your question into the Q&A box. And finally, the quiz and video replay. You'll be notified by email tomorrow once they are available. Now let's get started with today's webinar and welcome Rick Bernard, who has studied palmistry for over 20 years with his mentor, Richard Unger. And today he will share his interpretation of what he has learned and hopes that inspires us to study more about this branch of medicine to better support our patients and clients. All right, Rick, are you able to take over now and share your PowerPoint?
Okay. Okay, I think we're set. Thanks for joining me again. I want to take care of a few housekeeping things first. Somebody brought it to my attention that I haven't actually talked about how you actually take a print from somebody if you actually want to do a reading. You don't need a print, but it actually does make it easier. So you're going to need to get some ink first. You can get it from any art store like a Michael's. You can even get it on Amazon. And you want to get, it's called Speedball water-based black ink. Okay, again, it's Speedball water-based black ink. And you also need to buy a little roller. They should sell it at the art store. Just like it looks like a paintbrush, but very, very small. And then you also want like a block that they should sell. And you squeeze the ink onto the block, and then you roll the roller on it so it's thoroughly coated, and then you roll it over the hand. And you totally get the ink all over the hand. Then you just get a piece of paper on a desk and then have them take a print like so and have them do both hands. It's fairly easy. Yeah, I'm going to show some slides today that actually aren't prints, so you get used to seeing what a hand looks like and how to read it without actually looking at a print too, because that's important. A lot of times, obviously, when you're in a private practice, and you're maybe taking a pulse and you want to look at somebody's hand, you're not going to ask them to take a print. So so you want to be able to actually read the hand itself. So I also want to give you some information on, I'm not sure if I'm going to be teaching any more classes or not. My new real estate gig has really taken over my life. So at least for the next year, I'm going to be concentrated on the real estate and try and sneak in this stuff when I can, but I found I'm not really great at multi-processing, and I'm really good at focusing on one thing at a time and just putting all my energy into it, but just not very good at this. So so I want to give you some good resources you can use. First of all, my mentor, Richard Unger, just came out with an incredible book, and it's called Hand Analysis 101. It's a 1,500-page book, and you can order it comes in 3 volumes. They're quite large, and it's not cheap. It's $750, but it's the most amazing book I've ever read. You can also buy the online version, and which is actually what I did, and it's $375, so quite a bit more manageable. It works great, looks great. It's an amazing tool. Actually, this first slide is actually from that book, but it's you won't actually need me anymore, quite honestly. It's so incredible. And he actually kind of goes into even how to thread. It'll show a hand and it'll show you how to look at it from different aspects. Ideally, when you look at a hand, you want to look and try and triangulate. You want to try and get at least 3 features, 3 traits in the hand, and then blend those together. And that's the real art of palmistry. It takes a while. I'm not great at it. I'm constantly trying to improve on it. Richard is amazing at that. So anyway, he would be a great resource to get the book. I'm going to give you some information on Richard. He has a site you can go to. It's handanalysis101.net. And the book, it says you can order it now, but it looks like it's not actually orderable yet. But you can read about it, and it shows a little bit about what's involved in what's in the content. So it's good to actually just look at it, and to actually get a hold of Richard, and maybe you can order it now directly from him. He's at area code 415-331-9922. And his email address is richard@lifeprints.com. A couple different ways to get a hold of him. Great guy. He's actually working on another book, a continuation of this 101. I can't imagine there being any more to learn. It's hand analysis 102, and it's going to be huge also. There's no book like this. It's an amazing book. You're going to love it. So anyway, it's nice to have good resources. I also want to tell you about another woman that I've studied with, and it's actually a student of Richard's. Her name is Ronelle Coburn. She has a website that you can actually purchase individual modules, and they have different themes, and you can study anything you want. You want to study thumbs, or you want to study fingerprints, or you want to study heart line stuff. It spends an hour really focusing on that. In my class, what we're trying to do is really just kind of throw everything at you. And I know it's kind of been overwhelming, but I just want to try and get as much information as I can to you. And then if you really want to concentrate on an area, you can get one of these books and you can really dial in. So Ronelle has a website, lifepurposenow.com, lifepurposenow.com. And her contact information is 503-928-7798. And if you go to the tab training, there's a tab that says training, and then you go to postgrads online lectures. That'll get you to all the modules that she has for sale. For people that have actually been through the program, what I've taught you so far is enough to start on this and actually use it. So you'll be in good shape. You don't need to do she actually teaches a year-long program also. You won't even need to take it with what you know. So you can just dive right in. I think the modules are like $35 each. They're really pretty reasonable, but they're really fantastic. She's a really great teacher. Okay. So obviously I've been involved in hand reading or body reading systems for a long time. Hand reading is something that really drew me more than probably any other system. I just love the fact that you can, well, it's very much like Chinese diagnostics, right? You're looking at a person's tongue, you're telling them what's going on with their body by looking at their exterior body. Hands are a great way to do it. It gives you more information probably than any other system from a psychological perspective to really get a profile of behavioral traits from a person. There's really no stronger body reading system than this. I'll talk about handwriting analysis because they're very similar in here in just a minute. But this is really just such a great system for learning more about what's going on with a person inside, which can be really helpful. Okay, so there's a couple of holes in what we've gone over so far that I wanted to kind of talk about before we get into a few analysis of some case analysis. So I wanted to talk a little bit about finger tips. And even fingertips give some information about a person and how they think and what they're all about. So let's take a look at the different types. There's 4 basic types of fingertips. And at the top is the pointed type. And pointed types are, they're artistic, poetic, they're dreamers, they're idealists. They want to make the world a better place. So if you see tips like that, that's kind of what a person is about. Okay, and I'm going to show you some prints and show you what they look like. Okay. The second one is the conic print. And you can see it's kind of a rounded print, not as pointy. And we'll show some examples of it. And conic tips are kind of emotional, more people-pleasing type people, kind of easygoing, impulsive. You can say they're, depending on which finger that conic tips show up on, we'll tell a little bit more, and we'll kind of examine that a little bit more detail as we go along. The third one is the square tip, and square tips are led by reason, order, utility, a little more cautious. They're not the type to be impulsive like the more conic tips. The square has a lot to do too with just practicality. They really lead with their head rather than their heart, where the conic tip is more heart-oriented. Okay. Then the final tip is called spatulate. And spatulates actually kind of branch out. They kind of explode at the end. And those are action-oriented people. They're very individualistic. They're very creative. But action is really a key word for them. A good phrase also is intolerant of restraint. It's almost like they have so much energy, it has to explode through the tips of their fingers. Okay. I saw a print of Janis Joplin the other day, and spatula tips tend to show up most on the Apollo finger. That's the finger of creativity and self-expression. And many artists you'll see, if you notice their fingerprint on their Apollo finger, you'll see it be very spatulated. Janis Joplin, I'm dating myself here, but she was a singer one time, and she had this incredible splaying of her Apollo fingertip, and actually hers is so much. It's so independent, so creative. We call it the Joplin tip. Okay, you won't see many quite as accentuated as hers, but really interesting stuff. Okay, let's keep going here. So you can kind of take a look and get a feel for what tips these look like. You can tell that they're obviously more pointy. And again, those are going to be people that tend to be more idealistic, spiritual oriented. These are very, very pointy tips. In fact, the thumb is not in a great position. I'm going to just kind of see, when you look at a hand, you kind of want to get just a general feel for what's going on with the hand, what shape it is. Are fingers bent or crooked? Does anything look out of ordinary? Is the thumb in or out? Obviously, that tells about a person's ability to make things happen. Or are they under somebody else's thumb? They're more followers. Okay, obviously, thumb is not in a very good, comfortable position. You want to get the thumb to, again, I always talk about this, get the thumb out, spread out. Okay, you want to manifest, create things in the world. Michael heart line, you can see how long it is, tends to kind of start to curve back. Again, this is the Michael heart line, see how long it is. A hermit line would stop short. Notice how flat it is, basically, and actually starts to curve back, and that's called a D-fork, and we've talked about that before. We'll renew it again here a little bit later. But this is kind of a power giveaway. It's kind of a people pleaser line, basically. Okay, so those are kind of the main features. I mostly want you just to pay attention to the pointy tips. Okay, so these are what conic tips look like. You can see how they're rounded, nice smooth round. They're not quite pointy, but they're a little bit of pointiness to them. And then they're not square either. I'm going to show you a square tip in a second. Okay. Curvy heart line, so more creative type person, thinks more right brain, possibly. You can see the heart line curving up, and it's curving right up to the Jupiter finger. Again, that's a Donna heart line. It's curvy, heading upwards so that's a nurturer, somebody that's interested in somebody else's needs before their own even. Whenever you see a Donna heart line, you always want to think in terms of, is the person taking care of their own needs as well, or is it giving it away? The further it is into the Donna zone, to the Jupiter finger, the more they're going to be more you-oriented, interested in others, making sure other people's needs are taken care of.